please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody, so after taking the weekend off from these videos, it's time to get back into Hit or Miss, where I look at NHL teams' first-round draft picks from 2005 through 2015 and determine if each pick is a hit or a miss. So we finished up the Pacific Division last week, so we are moving on to the Central, starting today with the Minnesota Wild. Before we get into it, I just have to ask that you please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like if you haven't already, as both of those things really help out the channel a lot and are greatly appreciated. But let's get into it here. Minnesota Wild first-round draft picks from 2005 through 2015, starting in 2005, where they picked 4th overall, and with that selection took left wing Benoit Pouliot. Now this pick is a miss, as Benoit Pouliot did have a pretty long NHL career, but was never more than a third liner. And he played 625 games, scoring 130 goals, 133 assists for 263 points, and a plus 25 rating. Not a bad depth scorer throughout his career in the NHL. However, when you're drafting in the top 10, really, but particularly in the top 5, you are looking for a star, not even just a star, but a superstar player. And 4th overall, Benoit Pouliot certainly never lived up to being a 4th overall pick, as he spent pretty much his entire career as a third-line secondary scorer. So not a bad career for Pouliot, but definitely a miss as a 4th overall pick, as he was never a star player. Moving on now to 2006, they picked again at 9th overall, once again in the top 10. And with that pick, they took forward James Shepard. This pick, once again, is a miss, as James Shepard played 394 games in the NHL, only scoring 23 goals and 68 assists for 91 points and a minus 38 rating. Shepard was a depth player on, in the league for a little while. Obviously, did have an NHL career. He played almost 400 games, but only 23 goals, only 91 points. Again, never a top 6 forward. And when you're picking in the top 10, you're looking for a star player. James Shepard was never a star player. He was pretty much a 3rd or 4th liner his entire time in the NHL. Moving on to 2007 now. They picked 16th in the first round. And with that pick, they took left wing Colton Gillies. And this, again, is a miss, as Colton Gillies only ever played 154 games in the NHL, scoring 6 goals and 12 assists for 18 points and a minus 12 rating. A guy who just never really made it, never really had a full-time NHL job. Was kind of right on that borderline between AHL and NHL. Spent a lot more time down in the AHL, and never really found his home at the NHL level, and just could never really stick in the big league. So that one is a miss as well. Moving on again, 2008. Now in 2008 they picked 23rd overall, so they're getting later and later in the draft here, and they took defenseman Taylor Kuma with that pick. And once again, we have another miss by the Minnesota Wild, as these misses keep racking up here with these first-round picks. Kuma only played 1 NHL game in his career, did not have any points, even rating, barely touched NHL ice in his career, obviously with only 1 game played, and Taylor Kuma just did not work out as an NHL defenseman. So 2005 through 2008, all first-round misses so far, but things do start to get better, and we start to see a shift here in the Wild's drafting as we head into the 2010s. And first, in 2009, they were back picking 16th overall again, and this time they took defenseman Nick Leddy. And this is finally a hit, as Nick Leddy never really did anything with Minnesota, but he did come up into the NHL with Chicago and now plays for the Islanders, is still in the league. He has 720 games played, 63 goals, 242 assists for 305 points, and a minus 27 rating. He's still a top 4 defenseman in the NHL for the New York Islanders now, and has put together a very, very solid NHL career. So Nick Leddy is a hit at 16 overall in 2009. 2010, they they were back in the top 10, picking 9th overall, where they took forward Mikael Granlund. This is another hit, as Mikael Granlund has gone on to have some very successful NHL seasons. A few 60-plus point years in there, some 50-plus point years. He's become a pretty solid second-line player in the NHL. He's played 540 career games, scoring 111 goals, 241 assists for 352 points and a plus 22. He now plays for the Nashville Predators, as he was traded to Nashville last season for Kevin Fiala. Over 500 games played and counting, over 350 points and counting. Granlund's a solid top 6 point producer, second line guy, and has become, a pretty darn good top 6 player. So that one's definitely a hit. 2011, they picked twice in the first round in 2011. The first one coming 10th overall, where they took defenseman Jonas Brodin. Jonas Brodin is a massive hit at 10 overall, as he is still on the Minnesota Wild to this day. He's one of their best defensive defensemen. He's played 555 career games, scoring 30 goals, 116 assists for 146 points and a plus 47 career rating. Not a huge point producer from the back end, obviously only 146 points and over 550 games played, but he's a defensive defenseman, a good shutdown defensive zone player. Very strong guy in his own end, and a solid D-man in the top 4 for Minnesota still. So that pick, absolutely a hit. They picked again at 28th overall, and they took forward Zach Phillips, and that pick was a miss, as Phillips never played an NHL game, no points, no nothing, never touched NHL ice in the regular season. Obviously, he played preseason, but that doesn't count for anything. 0 career games played, actual games in the NHL, and Zach Phillips spent a long time in the AHL, was a pretty good player in the AHL, but never made the jump to the NHL, so that's obviously a miss. 2012, they come in 2012 with the 7th overall pick in the first round, and with that pick, they took defenseman Matt Dumba, another massive hit here, as Dumba has become a mainstay of their defense corps. Another top 4 defenseman still for them, a great two-way defenseman who's played 411 games played, scoring 62 goals, 112 assists for 174 career points and a plus 27 rating. Really solid young defenseman for them. Signed a long-term deal last season, not this past year, but the year before. Signed a long-term deal with Minnesota, staying in Minnesota for the time being. There's been a lot of talk about him possibly getting traded, but he's become, he would be a hot commodity on the trade market, as he's become a very solid top 4 D-man. In 2013, they did not have a first-round pick, so we moved right on to 2014 here, where they selected 18th overall and took forward Alex Tuch. And this pick is once again another hit, as Alex Tuch has 200 career games played, scoring 43 goals, 63 assists for 106 career points and a plus 3 rating. He's become a very solid secondary scorer for the Vegas Golden Knights, where he's spent pretty much his entire NHL career has been with Vegas since they came into the league. And he's a really good third-line secondary scorer for them when he's healthy, and he's got 106 career points and 200 career games played. Alex Tuch has been a nice, solid, middle-of-the-lineup NHLer in his career, and he's still young, obviously drafted only in 2014. He's still very young, still got room to continue to improve and grow and get even better. And finally, 2015, they selected 20th overall, and with that pick, they took center Joel Eriksson-ek. And this pick, I'm going to say, once again, is a hit, as Eriksson-ek hasn't become a huge star for them. He's really more of a fourth-line type guy, but he's become a pretty solid two-way depth center. He's still with the Minnesota Wild. He's played 210 career games, scoring 24 goals and 42 assists for 66 points and a plus 3 rating. If this was a top 10 pick, I would be saying miss 100% on this, but because it was later in the first round, 20th overall, just getting an NHL level player out of that is pretty good. And Eriksson-ek is a regular in their lineup. He's a bottom six center for them, but he's a pretty good defensive player. He can chip in some secondary scoring. And he's still very young, obviously only drafted 5 years ago. He's still in his early 20s. He can continue to improve and continue to get better, and maybe the offense will start to come around a little bit more for him as he gets a little bit older. But right now, he's still a regular in the lineup. He's still an important part of that team, a good young player on that team, and a pretty solid shutdown defensive center. So I'm going to say Eriksson-ek is a hit there at 20th overall. So there you have it, guys. The Minnesota Wild first-round picks from 2005 through 2015. Obviously, through the 2000s, the drafting was rough. A lot of misses there. There were a lot of issues. But then as we got into the 2010s, there was a significant shift in how well they were drafting, as it was hit after hit after hit for the most part, with the exception of Zach Phillips, but every team's going to miss one here or there. For the most part, through the 2010s, they were nailing these first-round picks, and that's a very, very good sign for the Minnesota Wild. So there you have it, guys. That's going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.